What's up, world? Welcome to part 2 of my series where I'm ranking all of the books I read last year. I talked so much last time that I only got halfway through my list. So this time I'm going to be covering the top 5 books that I read last year. And from here on out, it's all amazing books, honestly. It's just a matter of how much it impacted my life. And in the process of editing my last video, I already realized that there was so much wrong with it. I don't know why in the hell I wasn't just spoiling the damn books. Like, whenever I'm watching like a media analysis video on YouTube, I want to know what happened. Like, that's why I'm watching it. So from here on out, there will be spoilers for all of the books that I'm going to be mentioning. So if I mention one that sounds interesting to you, just go ahead and skip to the next book. And the other thing is, I can't believe that I didn't think to give examples of what I'm talking about. So this time I'm gonna do that. So with that in mind, here is number 5, The Ferryman by Justin Cronin. My aunt lent me this one. Shout out, Auntie. I swear she has the best taste ever. And honestly, this one just has some of the most beautiful imagery I've ever come into contact with in any book. It really sticks with you. And now we're gonna get into some spoilers. So the book opens with a Prosperian named Cynthia preparing and then executing her own death, basically. We find out that everyone has a monitoring device in their arm, which she cuts out before ending her own life. And after that, the POV shifts to her son, Proctor Bennett, who becomes our protag and basically our vehicle for finding out more about this world. Because I would say the world itself is the main point of intrigue with this novel. So in the first couple chapters, we find out that Prospera is an awesome place to live. There's no sickness, no poverty, no crime. Everyone's just living a big old happy life over there. Everyone's pretty much free to spend their time making art and like spending time with their family and basically doing whatever they want to do. Nobody has to give birth and nobody has to die. They just get reincarnated. Whenever you get old and frail and sick, you just hop on the ferry and then you come back as a sparkly new 16-year-old ready to be adopted to a new family and start your brand new life in Prospera. Sounds pretty amazing, right? Well, don't get too comfortable because there's a catch. Like there always is. It wouldn't be a dystopian sci-fi novel if it was truly that utopic. Is that even a word? Utopic? Not everyone living here is like having that amazing life. The people who live in the annex don't get to have easy lives. They have their own children the old-fashioned way and they die. And while they're alive, they get the honor of being the Prosperian sanitation workers, construction workers. Like they do like the hard labor, like the hard like sort of service jobs. That's why the Prosperians can afford to spend all of their time doing things that people like to do. I wonder if that shows up on camera. There's like a fly that won't leave me alone. Do I look insane? I probably do. I am insane. It's fine. Oh yeah, remember when I said that Prosperians get old and frail, they have to take the ferry to their next life? Well, that's Proctor's job. The ferryman. Proctor. So, as the ferryman, he's the one who shepherds people from one life to the next. And so, boom, his first client that he gets to bring to the ferry is none other than his father. Which is kind of crazy. Like, that's crazy work. Because, are you telling me he's the only ferryman? I feel like there's no way he would have been the only ferryman. Like, there must be more than one. Right? Or maybe he was. But still, it's kind of crazy to, like, be the one to bring your father to the ferry. Anyway, so we find out that not everyone goes, like, peacefully to this next life. Sometimes they, like, glitch out or say something really crazy. they'll say stuff that's like echoes of their past life and stuff. Like things can get a little weird. And his dad gets very weird. His dad starts saying a bunch of crazy stuff. And it's kind of like the Hunger Games where like there's like drones everywhere with cameras like watching everything. And like his dad starts freaking out and it's all on camera in the drones. But like they didn't pick up on everything. But his father whispers something to him as he's freaking out on the dock. And it's like this word, Oranios. And it's like, ooh, mysterious word. Now we have a mystery. Like, it's not just like, ooh, fucked up dystopian sci-fi world, what's gonna happen? It's like, mystery. Boom. What does Oranios mean? What is that? Who is that? Where is that? What is that? Right? 2 beautiful ingredients to make an amazing, amazing book. And wow, it's so good. There's something about this book that just feels like a dream. It's disorienting. Like, sometimes you'll be in the middle of a scene and then it just changes into something else. And it's very like, what is even going on here? And there were a couple scenes that when I was reading them, I thought they were a dream sequence or one of those echoes I was talking about, which is a thing in this world. And it's like a no-no. Like, if you're having those, it's like bad. If you're having dreams, it's bad. You're not supposed to. Sometimes I don't know if a scene is one of those or if it's really happening. There was one scene in particular where a storm happens and I didn't think it was real when it was happening, but it was. Okay, I just wanted to read you guys one of the dream sequences in this book. This one is just from the beginning of the book, so it doesn't really spoil anything in and of itself. I just wanted to read it to give you a sense of how the prose is and how it's written. And I did skip some parts because it's already so long and like, yeah. Here we go. I am swimming in the sea, below the surface, breath held. I pushed my way forward through a liquid blue-green world. My limbs feel clean and strong. My strokes effortlessly powerful. Sunlight shimmers color against a purpling dome of sky. Drawn by an unknown influence, my actions are neither voluntary nor involuntary, they simply are. I swim away from shore. Night follows slowly, then all at once, whereupon I experience a terrible sense of error. This is all a grand mistake. You don't have to be afraid, Proctor. Her voice isn't one I know. Yet there is something about her presence that fills me with a great calm. It is as if I have been waiting for her. At last, she is here. It won't be long now, she says gently. I'll show you the way. Where are we going? But she doesn't answer. As she glides away, I follow. There is no wind, no current. The surface of the sea is as motionless as stone. She gestures skyward. Can you see it? A single brilliant star has appeared. It's different from the others, brighter, more distinct, with a bluish tint. Do you remember the star, Proctor? Do I? My thoughts are diffused, drifting like chips of straw in a current. They skip from point to point. The ocean, its impersonal, inky vastness. All is known and unknown, all familiar, all strange. Time to wake up, Proctor. I wave my legs frantically to hold myself afloat, but this is useless. It's as if I'm kicking air. Her voice is a whisper close to my ear. Look down. I do, and with that, I plunge. We plunge down into an infinite black abyss. And the last thing I think is this. The sea is full of stars. Ooh! Whoa! There are so many scenes like that in this book, like that are just so beautifully written, it can make you cry. Like, you know what it reminds me of? Has anyone seen Children of the Sea? Is that what it's called? It's like this anime movie. I don't even know who the director is. It's not a Studio Ghibli, but the animation is like on that level. I swear to God. Yeah, Children of the Sea. It reminds me of that. Like, if you know, you know. But yeah, anyway, so much happens in this book. We eventually get to see the process of going to the ferry, because Proctor starts to figure some stuff out about what his father said, and the government's onto him, and it's this big deal. He's starting to piece together certain things, and so he gets kind of captured and forced on the ferry, and he goes to the nursery. And it's so cool getting to see behind the curtain, because from the beginning, that's probably one of the biggest mysteries in the entire novel. What actually happens when you go on the ferry? So we get to see it. And it's so odd and so manipulative. Like, there are people there who are like clones of each other. Like, there are lots of different copies of them. And they like try to manipulate you into giving up your life so that you can be reborn. Like, it's like, won't it be nice? Like, and they give you the best food, just like treat you so well. And it doesn't work on Proctor. He escapes. A huge reckoning happens between the Prosperans and like the Annex people. And it's all revealed at the end that they are on a spaceship called Oranios. Damn it, I forgot one of the most important plot lines. Oh my god. How could I forget? Earlier in the book, Proctor meets this girl named Kaylee, and he's like, you're too young to like be fresh from the ferry. Are you an Annex girl here? Like, what's your deal? What's going on? He doesn't really know. She's just kind of there. And so she's mysterious right off the bat. She like strikes up a conversation with him, and she asks him to teach her how to swim. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he teaches her how to swim. And then he doesn't forget about her. And then later on, she's at the nursery too. And then he loses her. He doesn't know where she went. And then so when this huge reveal happens that they're on a spaceship called Oranios, they're going to this planet called Kalis, which is like related to her name, Kaylee. And it turns out that his wife in they're on a spaceship, and like all of Prospera was like a simulation, basically. Not just a simulation, but a dream, a very specific person's dream. And it wasn't Proctor's dream, it was his wife's dream. And I didn't even mention her yet because like she's not that big a part of the story. She's just kind of like the boring wife that's like not really there. Like, she's there, but she's not like present. And like Proctor even has like an affair on her with like this other chick who's like a much bigger part of the story. I don't know if this is making sense at all, but the book is like hard to make sense of. That's the thing. He had an affair on Elaine, his wife, with this girl Thea, and she's a bigger part of the story. And so when they all wake up in the simulation, the reveal is that Kaylee was his daughter with Elaine, and that Kaylee drowned, bro. Like, she drowned back on Earth. And so for the simulation, they needed to model it off of one person's like consciousness in order for it to work. Like, it was like their mechanism for making it work and for making it appear real to the people in the simulation. So they used Elaine's brain, her consciousness. So the whole of Prospera, all of it was all Elaine's dream, which is crazy. And it's like, that's why Kaylee was popping up in it more and more near the end. And like, the whole reason they needed this simulation is to pass the time and to preserve their bodies almost like in time during their journey from Earth, a dying planet now, to planet Kalis. So, and Proctor named it Kalis after Kaylee. And so basically, the scientists who came up with all of this different technology, like the technology to get them on the spaceship, the technology to help them survive on planet Kalis once they get there, and the technology for the simulation, those were the people in the Annex, bro. And guess who the people in the Prospera was? The billionaires who bought their way on that plane, spaceship. So isn't that crazy? And it just makes so much sense. But yeah, like, I don't know, it's just one of those stories, like, it kind of looks at this very human thing, to kind of look at a world where, like, everyone's pretending like everything's so good, everyone's pretending like everything's okay, and you can just see that there's something broken about it, but you feel like you just sound insane if you said anything. It also could be the case that you're the thing that's broken about it. It's the most disorienting thing of all, but there's this one minor plot line in the annex where you get to see their lives a little bit. The woman Proctor has an affair with, Thea, is like undercover in Prospera. She's actually originally from the annex, and she like comes over to live in Prospera. And like she goes back home and you're introduced to this man in her community. He's this blind guy who's a painter. And like he paints the most beautiful pictures of stuff that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like it's like the sky, the water, planets, the stars. There's a scene where a young Thea, she's just a girl at this point, the guy shows her one of his paintings and she just sits there looking at it and she just eventually starts crying. And he's like, "Why are you crying?" And she's like, "It's me." Man, like that's just like, that's good shit. That's what art is, no? Like, you can see yourself in something that's nothing like yourself. Yeah, this was a great one. No notes. And it only gets better from here. Post-refreshment break, I'm refreshed. Galvanized. I smell so good. Gotta smell good for this video. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, number 4, we're back to theology, baby. Okay. How Jesus Became God by Bart D. Ehrman. So, I discovered Bart Ehrman on Theology YouTube, actually. He has a pretty big presence here. He like does his own podcast, he's debated several apologists, and he goes on like any sort of atheist podcast, including people like Alex O'Connor, which is where I discovered him actually. He's basically an ex-evangelical atheist, scholar of the New Testament. I almost died like saying that. Why was that so hard for me to say? But yeah, so like he's one of the people that kind of inspired me, because I was like, you can do that? Like you can be an atheist and like dedicate your life to the Bible? Like that's kind of really cool. But it kind of makes sense too, because he was raised as an evangelical, so he was already in that world. He just never stopped being interested in it after he lost his faith, which I think is really interesting. And I respect his work, and he's a very likable person. Like, he does this, like, characteristic Bart laugh that's just, like, so cute. So I already liked him, so I basically searched him up on Libby to see if they had anything by him, and this one popped up, so I read it. And I'm so happy I did, because, like, it's a really good first window into, like, early Christianity. Like, specifically the voices that contributed to early Christianity to make it what we think of it as today. Like, it's almost like a crash course on all of these different people who shaped the theology. And it's like a very honest attempt to go back to what the very first Christians thought about Jesus, their Lord, and like how they would have described him. Because we really don't know. Like, our earliest manuscripts that we have of the Gospels or of Paul's letters or anything are at least like 20 years after Jesus died. I'm pretty sure. 10 to 20 years after he died. So that's already like a lot of time for things to sort of get blown out of proportion, let's say. Especially if people are like fundamentally sinful and broken. And so I'm obviously really into Christian theology. Obviously this isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea. But this book was wonderful to read. And like, if you are at all interested in this, I feel like you'll learn a lot about Christianity, like just from this one book. And I would recommend it for like believers or non-believers alike, because it'll just really make you think about it a little bit differently than you did before. And obviously Bart has some bias of his own. He is an atheist. He's coming at it from an atheist point of view. But like, it is a solid scholarly work. Like he put the work in, and he approaches things from a historical perspective as opposed to like sociological or like psychological or philosophical like you usually see. It's like historical, so he's about like the facts. Like he kind of goes about it with like a detective sort of vibe, where he really tries to piece together what we can know about the things that happened back then. And it's really, really cool. Like, you don't really see that, so I think it would be great for anyone to read. And like, you get the sense that even though he's an atheist, like, he loves Jesus. Like, he loves what he represents. He loves like what he taught. Like, he doesn't believe in his divinity, but he believed that Jesus was a good man who taught good things, like, and that he was a man of like peace and love. And you know, I think he approaches the issue with the care it deserves, while also like daring to be a little humorous at times. For example, the book begins pretty much by introducing the historical Jesus and introducing his aims for the book, which is to show who Jesus really was and how his earliest followers thought of him. And then he follows that up by kind of summarizing the story of a man, and the subtitle is something like An Extraordinary Life, right? And then it starts with this guy, like he was born of a virgin, and he performed miracles, and he was savagely murdered by the Romans and rose from the dead, appearing to one of his followers to prove it before ascending to heaven later on. And you're like, yeah, like you're reading this like, yeah, I know the story of Jesus. And then Bart hits you with the fact that he's talking about some guy named Apollonius. And you're just like, oh, okay. So that's not a totally unique story. And you're like, wow, there are other stories with very similar plot points from like around the same era. Interesting. So right off the bat, he kind of checks you, because even if you aren't a Christian, you probably do think that Jesus' story is like very unique, but it's not. And that's kind of crazy. And then following that are a mosaic of voices who contributed to the modern vision of who Jesus is and what he represents. My favorite part is the part where Bart tells us that the Gospels, the stories of Jesus' life, were actually written after Paul's letters. So like, basically that means that Paul's letters are the earliest writings we have. Like, they're the writings we have that are closest to Jesus, like chronologically. And so I would introduce Paul, but I'll just let Bart do that because I feel like he'll do a way better job. This is from page, no one cares. The first Christian author we have is the Apostle Paul, whose earliest surviving writing is probably 1 Thessalonians, written possibly around 49 or 50 CE, fully 20 years after Jesus had been crucified. Paul started out as an outsider to the apostolic band, whatever that means, and originally opposed rather than supported their movement. 2 years or so after Jesus' death, say 32 or 33 CE, when Paul first heard of Jews who believed Jesus to be the Messiah, a crucified man, he rejected their views with vehemence and set about persecuting them. But then, in one of the greatest turnarounds in religious history, arguably the most significant conversion on record, Paul changed from being an aggressive persecutor of the Christians to being one of their strongest proponents. He eventually became a leading spokesperson, missionary, and theologian for the fledgling Christian movement. He later claimed that this was because he had had a vision of Jesus alive long after his death and concluded that God must have raised him from the dead. So, Paul's kind of the blueprint for, converts. This is where Christians get this obsession with conversion. It's like, if it can happen to Paul, it can happen to you. Oh, you gamble? Paul used to kill Christians, and he got saved. So, what's your excuse? And so Paul believed he was personally called by God to engage in missionary activities among the Gentiles, persuading these pagans that their own gods were dead, lifeless, and of no use, but that the God of Jesus was the one who had created the world and entered history in order to redeem it. Only belief in the Messiah could put a person into a right standing before God, because the Messiah had died for the sins of others, and God, in order to show that this death did indeed bring atonement, had raised him from the dead. Arguably, Paul's greatest contribution to the theology of his day was his hard-fought view that this salvation in Christ applied to all people, Jew and Gentile alike, on the same grounds. Faith in the death and resurrection of Jesus. Being Jewish had nothing to do with it. To be sure, Jews were the chosen people, and the Jewish scriptures were a revelation from God, but a Gentile did not have to become a Jew in order to have salvation through the death and resurrection of the Messiah. For Paul, salvation certainly had come from the Jews, since Jesus was, after all, the Jewish Messiah, but once this salvation had come to the world, it was good for the entire world, not just for Jews. It was the means of salvation that God had planned from eternity for all people. End quote. In his letters to the different churches that he wrote, he's instructing them on how to be proper Christians, but he's also trying to show them hey, I'm on your side. Remember when I was persecuting y'all? I was just joking. And Bart shows that through his letters we can peek even slightly further back, even from his letters, because he includes passages in some of his letters that a lot of scholars think are excerpts from earlier traditions. He is quoting from pre-established Christian traditions to show that, hey, I'm one of you. An example would be, "For I handed over to you among the most important things what I also had received." This is Paul writing. What I also had received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12, then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, many of whom survive until now, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles, and last of all, he appeared even to me, as to one untimely born. That's fire. First of all, that's fire. More quotes from Bart. Paul is indicating that this is a tradition already widespread in the Christian church, handed over to him by Christian teachers, possibly even the earlier apostles themselves. In other words, this is what New Testament scholars call a pre-Pauline tradition. So this is a very ancient tradition about Jesus. Does it go back even to before the time when Paul himself joined the movement around the year 33 CE, some 30 years after Jesus had died? If so, it would be very ancient indeed. That's so cool! End quote, by the way. Before I said that's so cool. End quote. So that's interesting to me too, because he said that Jesus appeared to the 12. And Bart argues that suggests that Paul had no knowledge of the tradition of Judas betraying Jesus, because Judas was one of the 12. The 12, disciples. Judas was one of them, and he betrays Jesus, leaving only 11. And then, it takes them, a long time to like pick a new 12th. So it's like interesting because like, was that even a thing yet then? Like, was that a later addition to the story? The whole betrayal thing? Because like, if Paul's saying that he doesn't know that Judas betrayed Jesus, then like, then there wasn't even a story about that yet, which is like really interesting. So yeah, like at the end of this book, I just felt like I had a better picture of like how Christian theology evolved over the first 500 years or so to get to where it is today. And like, if you'll notice from the creed I quoted from Paul, it doesn't say anything about Jesus being God in there. Like, it talks about his resurrection and like he is their Lord, but he's not necessarily God yet. Like, not explicitly anyway. Maybe something they said could be interpreted to mean that, but it didn't seem like that to me. And it was just interesting how things changed over the years. This book was just so eye-opening and wonderfully frank, charming, and really interesting. Bart is so likable, and like reading him is like a breath of fresh air in the theology world. And like, I love imagining that world of theological debate back then. Like, not the execution part, but like maybe, you know, just the debate part. Yeah, I love to learn. I heart learning. All right, and at number 3 we have Piranesi by Susanna Clark. This one's like best of all time, for sure. Like, it's one of those books, it's so beautiful, and the setting is its own character in this book, and whenever I think about it, I just want to go back. Even though the story itself is actually really messed up and kind of disturbing, actually. But I feel like I didn't even really take that in the first time I read it because it's just so beautiful. So in my last video, I kind of discovered upon making the video that 2 of the books were kind of basically the same story, just with small differences. And like, I find the same thing is happening in this video because Piranesi is actually a lot like the Ferryman when I think about it. It's kind of like this, you're in this mysterious world and it functions very differently than the one we live in. And then slowly throughout the course of the story, it becomes unraveled and like, you kind of realize that it's all pretty much fake or like a construction. It's just like a jaw-droppingly stunning meditation on like humanity, solitude, gratitude, like survival, betrayal, rebirth. Like, it's definitely a life changer for sure. Like, it's kind of written in like a journal format, like a diary, which I'm always a sucker for. And right off the bat, it's just so imaginative. Like, it's technically a fantasy book, but it's definitely not what I expected. Like, I would recommend you check this one out just because like I feel like anyone could like this book. So spoilers. So Piranesi is our protag, and he lives in this like dreamlike world, and he loves it. Like, I would describe the setting that he's in, but I feel like I just want to read it. So I'm just gonna read like the first couple pages. So it starts off like this. Entry for the 7th day of the 5th month in the year the albatross came to the southwestern halls. I am determined to explore as much of the world as I can in my lifetime. To this end, I have traveled as far as the 960th hall to the west, the 890th hall to the north, and the 768th hall to the south. I have climbed up to the upper halls where the clouds move in slow procession and statues appear suddenly out of the mists. I have explored the drowned halls where the dark waters are carpeted with whitewater lilies. I have seen the derelict halls of the east where ceilings, floors, sometimes even walls, have collapsed and the dimness is split by shafts of gray light. The house has 3 levels. The lower halls are the domain of the tides. Their windows, when seen from across the courtyard, are gray-green with the restless waters and white with the spatter of foam. The lower halls provide nourishment in the form of fish, crustaceans, and sea vegetation. The upper halls are, as I have said, the domain of the clouds. Their windows are gray-white and misty. Sometimes you will see a whole line of windows suddenly illuminated by a flash of lightning. The upper halls give fresh water, which is shed in the vestibules in the form of rain and flows in streams down walls and staircases. Between these two largely uninhabitable levels are the middle halls, which are the domain of birds and of men. The beautiful orderliness of the house is what gives us life. Is it disrespectful to the house to love some statues more than others? I sometimes ask myself this question. It is my belief that the house itself loves and blesses equally everything that it has created. Should I try to do the same? Yet, at the same time, I can see that it is the nature of men to prefer one thing to another, to find one thing more meaningful than another. End quote. Like, right off the bat, it's just so good. Like, that says everything I could say about it. You're just kind of dropped in this world, and like Piranesi is like the only person in this house, and like the house seems to be his entire world. But then like pretty soon into it, you find out that like Piranesi isn't actually the only person in the house. There's one other person who's simply called the Other, and he has like weekly meetings with Piranesi where like they discuss like the nature of reality, and like this guy's just like really obsessed with trying to figure out the secrets of like the world they live in. And Piranesi is just kind of like confused by this. Like, he doesn't really get it. He loves the house. He feels blessed by it. The way he manages to survive in this environment, which can be pretty harsh, is actually pretty commendable, and it's impressive how he's able to like use his resources to survive there basically alone. He's just like happy to have a friend. Like, he's just there like hanging out with the Other, but the Other's just like, we need to figure out like all the secrets of this world. So right off the bat, like, you feel that something's off, but you just can't put your finger on it because you're just so happy to be there, just like Piranesi is. And the setting is just so beautiful and enchanting, and it almost seems like appealing in a way. But later on, you realize that like the circumstances by which Piranesi came to be like this is very nefarious. And like the setting is alive, like it's this ethereal plane, and there's like a logic to it. Like the halls flood at their appointed time, and like Piranesi is like very skilled at like knowing when they're gonna flood and where, and this actually helps him later on. So Piranesi's like main character trait is love, I find. Like, he loves the Other, he loves the house, he has this sort of like childlike innocence about him. And like, remember when you were a kid and like you would wake up every single day so excited, like even just seeing like the sun and like the clouds, you just feel like the entire earth was made for you. Like, it kind of reminds me of that. And like, you start off with this little tiny inclination that there's something off, and then it just comes undone, and it's just so masterfully done, the way the plot just like unravels. It's so cool. Piranesi, like, one of the first things he says that just kind of sets off your alarm bells is that he's like, my name is Piranesi, but like, I don't think that's my name. Like, I feel like I had another name, but I can't remember what it was. And then in his first conversation with the Other, I forget what exactly he said. I don't actually have the book. My best friend is, she has it right now, and like, she also read it, and she also loved it, by the way. By the way, the music I have on in the background is Macro Blank, the rare songs. Sorry, I have to say it like that. It's just amazing music. Like, Macro Blank is one of my faves. I don't know if this is allowed to do. Like, I'm not making any money from this video. Like, don't you worry about that. And it's like barber beats. So I don't know if it's even like you can steal someone's barber beats. Like, I don't even know if that's a thing. Like, I'll link to their music, to Macro Blank's channel, because like their music is so amazing, and it's like what I read to this past year, and it's like hard to read to anything else than like this channel, but specifically the rare songs. Like, the rare songs, they're just the best. The other says like, do you remember like this thing? And like, I forget what he said. It was like a street name or something. And Pure Nessie's like, what are you talking about? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I've never heard those words before in my life. He said something like that. It was really funny. But that's also weird, because like it's like the others like testing him in a weird way to like make sure that he's forgotten something. Like, this other character is like very suspicious even from the beginning, but you just don't know why. Like, yeah. So, and like, besides the statues that Pure Nessie seems to like humanize in a way, like he has favorite statues that he likes to like hang out with. He loves the birds in their way, and he loves the fish because like they're his food, and he loves the other. And there are also 14 like skeletons, like human skeletons in the house that he knows of. And like every day, or like very often, he leaves offerings for them, and like he like honors them. He like decorates them with like little seashells that he finds, and like he brings them like little pretty things that he finds around the house, and like honors them, and it's just so beautiful. Like, he thinks of them as friends too. He gives them like little nicknames. So like eventually the other just keeps like sending Pure Nessie on weirder and weirder like missions to try to figure out the meaning of life, some of which are like really scary for Pure Nessie, but he does it anyway because he just wants to be friends with the other. And you can start to see this sort of weird power dynamic between them. And Pure Nessie starts like forgetting things. And like he starts forgetting things like in his diary entries. And he starts like talking about the fact that he's so scared like for what's happening to his mental state in the diary entries. And it's like this weird almost fourth wall break where it's like not a story anymore. It's like Pure Nessie's descent into madness almost. And then like someone brand new enters the house and starts trying to communicate with him via messages that they leave. And this person is referred to as the 16th because it's like him, the other, and like the 14 skeleton. The other, like as soon as he tells the other about this, the other's like immediately jumps to like demonizing this mysterious person. He's just like, this person is insane, like they're gonna try to make you insane, they're evil, like they want to ruin your life, like don't listen to them or else you'll just go insane. And so Pure Nessie leaves them, in his innocence, leaves them a message that's like, my friend told me not to talk to you, you're gonna try to make me insane, and I don't want that to happen, please leave my house. Like, and it's like, oh, Pure Nessie. And it all comes to a head when it is revealed that the 16th is like a cop who's been looking for Pure Nessie because the world he's in is like a weird like spirit realm. And Pure Nessie comes from like regular life, and he's been missing for like years, and this cop lady like figured out that he was on this like astral plane because the other is like part of this cult that happened where they would like disappear people to try to do research on these like astral like spiritual planes. You just kind of zoom out and like there's a scene, like they show you the scene where he gets like trapped in that world, and it's like such a disturbing scene because like he's just this like normal kid from England, like a journalism student or something, and like he's sent over to interview like the other, And like the other ends up like inviting him to do the ritual, and like Piranesi is like, okay. He's like, okay, yeah, let's do the ritual. And like obviously he doesn't believe it's gonna work, but then they get to that world and he's like, wow, this is amazing. And then the other traps him there and just laughs and laughs and laughs as he screams. Like, it's such a disturbing scene, and it just shows you the truth of what's been going on this whole time. Like, yes, Piranesi like loves the house and he thinks it loves him and everything. He's happy to be there, but like it's because all of his memories have been like basically erased from spending so long in there. Like, it makes you forget who you are, which is why the other would only meet with him like once a week, because you can't stay there for very long before forgetting who you are. So like you find out that like the other is the one who trapped him there, and he's the one who named him Piranesi as like a joke. Like, I forget what Piranesi means, but it's like something to do with like being lost or something. I don't know. And he's like the last of a long line of people who evidently ended up dying in there, hence the skeletons. And he never found that amazing secret meaning that the other was after. Or maybe he understood it better than the other ever could have, because he actually lived there so long that he didn't know anything else except the peace of solitude and the beauty of his surroundings. Like, it's like an interesting look at how we can be grateful even for a horrible circumstance. Like, some people with the worst lives are like the happiest, strangely enough. Like, you see this happen sometimes, and sometimes the people with the best lives are the most miserable. I don't know, it's just interesting. And so in the end, like, Piranesi ends up being rescued by the cop lady. The other tries to prevent them from escaping, but because Piranesi knows the house like the back of his hand, he knows to like get up and get out of the way with the cop lady, because he knows the flood is coming. And the other wasn't there. He was just like ordering Piranesi around, telling him what to do while he was safe in like the real world with all of his memories intact. So he doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's in like a boat, and like he ends up drowning. Period. That's what he deserves. And it was like so satisfying. It's like, yeah, Piranesi beat you because he was the one that was there this whole time. So like cop lady saves him. They like go back to the real world, and like he feels so alienated. Like, he doesn't know who he is anymore. And by the end of the story, he kind of feels like he's both at the same time, and that he can't fully like let go of Piranesi. And like the end of the book is basically he and the cop lady going back to visit that world together. And it's like so cute, because like he finally has an actual friend there, and like he can come back in a timely manner so that like he doesn't have to be trapped there, but like he still gets to experience the beauty of that world. It's pretty much a happy ending. It's like tough to accept because it looked so pretty, but he was like a prisoner there the entire time. But he still did what humans do, which is just make the best of the cards were dealt, right? And just this image of this man, Piranesi, like spending his days alone, like smiling at nothing, like with seashells in his hair, and like just waiting for a fish to bite in those beautiful halls with the statues, like this world of like half-formed dreams. I don't know, it's just like such a cool, stunning, beautiful book. Highly recommend. Definitely one of my favorites ever, I think, for sure. Okay, so I yapped too much again. So I'm gonna do one more video, part 3, where I'm going to go over my top 2. Peace out. Until next time.